Hey everybody, this is Brad Dyke reaching out to you, and I forgot to do the software part of my discussions, and so this will be a short little 7 or 8 minute video about something that's very important about DevOps, ops, sets, and even your network environments. It's called How Do You Back Up Your Environment Properly, as in operationals wise. Well, the old days where we used to have a piece of software out there, we called it our backup software, are pretty much gone these days. And many a time, people will just initiate what we call something similar to Xcopy or RoboCopy, or do some manual processes they build into a cron job, or it's a chronological execution job, and they kind of pseudo create their own version of backups. But the thing that ends up always happening is you miss one crucial detail, and that is the fact that doing unscheduled, on the fly data backups isn't operational backing up. Operational backing up is a process of disciplines that have to be established. The first thing you want to do when you're dealing with backups is to understand all the resources that need to be backed up, ranging from your virtual connection interfaces to your routers, switches, your firewalls. Everything has to be looked at. And now, when you do that, the very first thing I would recommend would be done next is to establish your very first critical discipline, your retention policy. A retention policy is very simple. It's usually premised on 3 or maybe 4 policies. These policies are the policies that will run your backup jobs. You might choose to use a piece of software and use VTLs, that's virtual tape libraries, as your transformation process for transferring data, or you can do snapshots. And snapshots are nice because they give you the ability to be able to accomplish quite a few extra little steps that normally you can't do on the fly. What I mean by on the fly, well, maybe before I talk to that, let's establish the first one, the traditional style of backing up. The traditional style of backing up was usually done via a tape device or a magnetic retention device of some type. Now, that also includes hard drives. Now, for many years, people had to back it up to tape using probably a combination of a archive system like ArcServe or Commvault, and they used servers and RAM and hard drives as a temporary staging area for the backups, and they transitioned themselves over to tape libraries which then could be transported on a timed schedule based on policies such as the United States government, or financial policies where they have to send those tape copies to Iron Mountain or a remote site to keep them secured on tape for a period of time, and blah, blah, blah. Now, that was the old school. Today's environments are a wee bit different because we use cloud technologies. We are not using magnetic tape, but in the sense of backing up using the same systems such as Commvault and ArcServe, we trick the environment into what we call virtual tape libraries, VTLs. These are actually nothing more than spinning disks, different layers of spinning disks to be exact. SAS high performance all the way down to slow spinning 5400 SATA disks. Why? Because it's cheap, or at least cheaper. And that is still the same traditional kind of strategy because we're still kind of thinking of some type of virtual tape-like solution. But when we look at the cloud environments, we can say, we don't have to do that. What we can do is we can use another kind of technology we used, which is known as snapshotting. We used to use snapshotting heavily with replication and other technologies that allow us to move data from one place to another asynchronously or synchronously. We then began to evolve that into more of a why don't we use a snapshot with a retention policy to act as a quick down and dirty backup process. It worked. Not only did it worked really well. So, with that being the case, you'll find many common free open style platforms like Proxmox and so on that will allow you to use snapshots for your discipline. Now, you still need to think about a retention policy. So now we'll talk about that. So you either do tape library or do VTL, or you're going to do snapshots. Well, that's your technology, that's your vehicle. and you're sending it to a home, right? But how long do you keep it? That's very valuable information. If you work with the legal, or if you work with email environments, or if you work with federal, state, and local, you'll actually have laws imposed upon you to maintain your data for X amount of years, which means you have to store it. So, with that being the case, you will take the ability to develop a discipline of retention policy that will support your environment. Now, if you're a test bed environment, or if you're a standard ops environment, the retention policy are pretty simple. We do what we call one full weekly, and either an incremental daily or a differential daily that will refresh the journal of the principal full backup and rinse and repeat. And that will keep the backup weekly in a specific point. The second one is how long does the weekly stay around? And you say X amount of days. But you also have a version of it set aside to the next level. Now, if you're just a guy or a girl in your home lab, just do a 60-day retention policy, which basically means that you'll go down to one or two versions of your weekly, and you'll hold it for 100, for let's say 60 days, and then they'll go away. They just drop off, and you go ahead and do this again, and you rinse and you repeat over and over and over. Now, if you're an ops environment, it's usually 120 days data retention, where you will do your daily incrementals, you'll do your weekly fulls, and you'll hold the fulls periodically for a period of time of 120 days. Now, with that being the case, periodic full backups need to be done and then placed into a different, what we call the third or the fourth retention policy of 6 months, and the fourth one being 1 year. Those copies are placed away and are kept in play in regards to whatever federal policies or guidelines where you have to retain the data for so many years. Then and only then will the policies purge the data off your system. Now, when you deal with up to 4 retention policies on your backups, you need to just take a little time in your labs and just learn how to do that. This is what eats up storage, and you don't necessarily have to do that. If you tweak these out, you'll get storage back, and it won't be so bad over time, but you will eventually have lost storage until you finally delete that capacity from your system. Now, that leads us to the last part, and that is, why would I ever get rid of data? That is a very good question. And to answer that question clearly, it's because of one crucial reason. You're a company. That's right. You're either an entity, a governmental department, or you are a company. And holding data for long amounts of time in a particular way can possibly be a liability. That's right. You heard me. If you don't have it, it can't be used against you. Isn't that terrible to say? But it's true. Even in the best times, where people had the best intentions, you get a subpoena on you, and they reach out and try to get your old archive information so that they can use that because it wasn't done right, or there was a mistake made and they want proof. So unfortunately, because companies are more about protecting themselves these days than ever, they will go out and they will purge that data from their systems. The other part of that equation is they will be required to destroy the data by law. So these will help you kind of figure out, okay, I get it now. Now I understand why we need to do backups. And the standing of that backup can be an actual traditional tape library kind of strategy, or a VTL, or it could be a snapshot strategy. And those types of strategies do the task. Then you build the retention policies, and the very last thing that you have to do, and it still is the case today, is you must manage it. That's right. If you have snapshots and they're just sitting out there, they're just wasting space. Your retention policies need to be confirmed that they're working on a weekly, monthly basis. You have to assign a resource in your operations team to make sure that they're checking to make sure their backups are happening correctly. Backups do fail. You got to understand that. It's not if something's going to fail, it's when it's going to fail. When it comes to anything that is functionalize in IT. I don't care what it is. Always remember that. So, last critical detail about getting this discipline down right for backing up your environments, and that is select the way you want to back up, select the disciplines for your retention policies, and have the discipline on a monthly basis to check and do the maintenance required to maintain your backups indefinitely, because that's part of the job, right? And with that being said, this little blurb I just had with you to talk about operations in regards to backups is pretty much done. Now, here's the last bit of thing that I would say on this. Um, when you're dealing with this kind of bit by bit piece, right, and you're starting to write this up, do yourself a favor. Try to reinvent it. Right. How can you only check it every 2 months? Okay, that's legit. That's a very good thing. I think that if you try to get outside the box on this process, maybe you could help develop the next version, like snapshots became more popular than traditional backup devices. That could be the next pathway. We don't know. But experiment, have some fun with it. Um, you have these features in everything from ESXi, VMware, to Proxmox, to NAS, for TrueNAS, you name it. It's out there. Just start to learn how to use it, then put your retention policies into effect, test them, get good with them, and learn how to always bring them to bear every time you're in an operations environment. Well, this is Brad Dyke signing off. I did a few extra videos this week. Hope you guys don't mind. I'm be pretty busy the next couple of weeks, so you might not get too many videos from me. But I just do this because it's both fun and I hope is helpful for you guys. Can get you to the next level without having to pay a lot of money and training to get there. I'm going to let you go, and you guys have a great week. Take care. Bye bye.